Alternative Dig Talk. Real issues, real talk.
Hi, welcome to the Political Dice.
MPC ebyobufuzi.
It's controversial,
Purely political,
well researched,
accurate and global.
Oyagala bya parliament oba council.
Yes, State House oba ghetto.
Ani ayuga ku ground.
Ani gwe babuze.
Okimanyi nga Dr. Kiza Besigye aleese amaanyi.
Olwofadda bafutsoli abateeseemu obuvaazi.
Oba yo DP eri kuki?
Olwojema.
Bano ba MKCG bo baddawa.
Abo bafuna CDF baamala tebabanja. Olwo baba ate bange bali kuki?
Abo bo akina kulabisa simanyanga posturing tebabiri mbali mu structure building. Naye ate ono ye.
Ani oyo oba?
Yali kuki?
Oyo tumuleketa gamba mpanyiga mawu.
Ebe ndabena birindira no kuda Political Dice ku the Alternative Dig Talk nange teditenja ewamune.
Rtd Awich Pollar
buli wa Sunday
esawa 2.
The Alternative Dig Talk. Real issues, real talk.
Good evening, Uganda. This is the Hotline Show. My name is Edgar Matthew Karuhanga. Since we attained independence, this country has been grappling with a peaceful transition, especially when it comes to presidency. For the last 60 and more years, we have not really seen one individual handing on over power to another individual in what you would call a peaceful and a consensus in a manner that is really decent enough. And today, it's the topic of discussion. How can Uganda attain a peaceful transition? Then we also look at some of the remarks that have been made by some power holders in this country. The CDF came out to proclaim that no civilian can actually lead Uganda. Now that is just a snippet of the different hypotheses that we have when it comes to the transition question. Then we also look at the opposition preparedness to take power if hypothetically there is something that there is a change of guard. Is the opposition in this country very equipped and ready to take over the mantle? And of course, as we enter the political season, this is 2024, we're entering 2025, and of course we are going to the ballots in January 2026. How is it looking like, especially for the opposition? It looks like NRM is ready and gearing up to bring back President Museveni in 2026. According to his son, at least, the commander for the defense forces. How does this play out? It's going to be the topic of discussion. Feel free to send some questions, any comment, any remark that you'd like me to share with the panelists I have tonight, and I'll be able to read your messages subsequently as we continue with the program. On rather a sad note, yesterday there was a fire outbreak in one of the schools here in Uganda. That is Side View Nursery and Primary School. The fortunate thing is that nobody lost their life in that particular incident, but a lot of property has been destroyed. And this comes at a time when we have seen fire outbreaks in schools. Recently, one named as Shalom Junior School in Mayuge also, there was a fire outbreak. And up to today, the previous fire outbreaks that we've had around schools, government has actually not, or police has not given us a report detailing what really happened, who was behind this, and of course what happened to them. How does this play out? And of course, we also heard from the United Nations High Commission for Refugees confirming that by the end of 2024, Uganda is going to be having a total of 2 million refugees. And this comes at a time when there is a lot of questions about the refugees, things like competition for resources, becoming a bit of a challenge here and there. So how do we really talk about this question of the refugees? Then also, remember government has has not had a lot of funds, especially in the international communities. We're talking about funds that were frozen by World Bank following the rule that we made or the law against homosexuality. So how do we continue to sustain these particular refugees? That's also a question that I'm going to be posing to these gentlemen. Tonight, I'm joined by a gentleman from the Uganda People's Congress, UPC, that is Honorable Joseph Ochieno, and of course, the gentleman from the National Resistance Movement, retired Major Honorable Pollar Awich. That's going to be the topic of discussion for today. So feel free, once again, to send in some of your messages, some of your comments at Digitalk TV, that is on Facebook, at The Alternative Uganda, still on Facebook. But we're also streaming live on YouTube at The Alternative Uganda at Digitalk TV. On Twitter or X, we are at The Alternative UGA. So you can send many comments, questions, or remarks on those particular social media platforms, and I'll be able to read these messages and questions subsequently as we continue with the program. Allow me welcome Honorable Pollar Awich. You're welcome, sir.
Thank you, and greetings to our viewers.
Great, great. Do you have any opening remarks, something that stood out for you, especially in this country?
Well, not so much. I'm just want to say that no news is good news. So if we haven't had such an eventful week, it's okay. Because bad news travel faster than good news.
Yes.
So if we stay like this, without any major news, that is good enough. Because no news is good news. Bad news travel faster than good news. So we have been having a flat, peaceful, routine kind of life in the country, and that is what we want to have. Only that it must be backed up with productions. People should be involved in productions in all sector of the economies, and also production in terms of services, not only goods but services, but in a routine way.
Okay. So all is going really well. How about your chairperson and the headquarters at NRM? How are they doing these days as you're entering the political season?
Yeah, we are doing routine work. The chairperson is well. You remember we had a birthday the other day. The secretariat where I sit, Plot 10 Chadona Road, is good. Tomorrow we are going to have our normal consultations, which is indoors. We don't prefer the method of work of NRM OE. We prefer to check whether the services are being delivered according to our manifesto. So a group is going to Busoga, led by Deputy Secretary General. I'll go to Lango, and I'll be led by the Secretary General. So we are doing our work, and we consult in a disciplined way. We don't do rallies, but we conduct barazas meeting, we conduct indoor room meetings, we check with the authorities if the central government plus its local government is delivering, because it is us, the mandate holders, at least for these 5 years, that we promise people in the manifesto. So it also gives us a chance to check with the government. Are they implementing what we promised the people? Remember, the government and the party has principal agency relation. The party is the principal, the party is the boss, the government is the agent. Government is simply implementing what we promised the people, and people voted for us. So going out gives us opportunity. So we're doing well on Plot 10.
Exactly. Thank you so much. That gentleman is called Honorable Major Retired Pollar Awich. He's the director for the NRM External Affairs. He confirms that NRM is actually the silent majority. And just to remind you who's watching,
he says.
He confirms. Just to remind you, NRM has a minimum of 10 people in every village in this country. That is something that you don't find in many political parties. Sir, you're welcome from the Uganda People's Congress. I don't know why you're looking at me in such an eye, but it is.
I want to teach you
because
post UPE English.
Because you have spoken facts.
You're welcome, sir.
Thank you.
Your opening remarks.
While Comrade Awich is happy, or what I would say happy, with the no news from his perspective, I am extremely sad, meaning sad, that as you introduced, that we again saw a school fire.
Yes,
And this sort of being the third in not so distant long past.
exactly.
It's a very traumatic experience for young people, and I don't think anybody has taken this focus to say that these fires are traumatic experiences to young people, and that these are some of the things that remain with these people really almost certainly for the rest of their lives, and that these things would impact on their studies, impact on their confidence, impact on their social lives, impact on their relationships, impact so therefore in the eventual outcomes that they likely have got to impact out, whether in academic or indeed public lives, public services. And I find it rather sad that these things are now happening almost as a matter of routine. And the reports happen, allegedly, including one allegedly to have been claimed to have been being waited for.
Yes.
No formal government report has come out. We don't know what's going on these things. And so, saddening. It's an indictment on this regime, but it is real about life. So the fact that nobody died is not good enough. I have a friend of mine whom I'll choose possible not to mention, someone very senior in public life, who recently got involved in a major accident. And he got banned. Now, 7 of other survivors, including 5 of his close colleagues, were not banned. But apparently, I mean, he was still survived, so he's the most injured. The others, these are major people in public lives. Apparently, the most senior person out of that accident continues reportedly to get sleepless nights as a result of trauma. Because at this particular stage, he says that they thought they were going to die, and they had sort of literally given up, thanks to the security services that was with them that helped rescue them. So for children, like anybody else in life, this is not easy things. But good enough, Comrade Awich is talk about manifestos. I hope when they think and talk with their manifestos, they take into account some of these other things, the state of public services, the state of education in our country. In any case, education of our children have been privatized, have been monetized, and have now been given for profit. And it's not surprising that these things are happening. I also want to say that this morning I was having a conversation in a different media network in which one of my panelists happens to be someone who owns schools. And I actually got an interesting perspective that maybe now giving them to free information to security and for investigators. Some of them may be competition. Maybe others might be laxity, lack of regulations, lack of,
in competition, some other person coming to
different schools,
ban another school.
Yes.
Because
then there are grievances from pupils. Then there are cases of grievances from teachers. I know a teacher who's joined UPC recently, who left a school, who left a primary school, because she plus 11 of our colleagues had not been paid for a very long time. And according to her, she's owed over 3 million shillings. At some stage, this woman was struggling with a young child, and this woman in early, younger than 30, struggling with her own child plus a sister's child. And so this privatization of education, and the owner of the school is another public figure, who one of these days I might actually be tempted to consult my lawyer and mention. So you can go on and on. So that's very unfortunate. But anyway, Comrade Awich is about to complain that my introduction is getting long. It's just very important because about that. But finally, Comrade Awich's chairman, another big story, allegedly went, in my opinion, to insult people from northern Uganda about the involvement, really mainstreaming themselves into what he calls money economy. Good enough, Comrade Awich is going to the north tomorrow. One of the things that I've not said publicly is that while he was saying like that, why I use the word insult, is the guy almost certainly forgot that he confined people in northern Uganda, or people in northern Uganda have been confined for almost nearly 20 years in concentration camps in the state of war started by this very particular guy and his regime. And the tone of that expression was nearly sort of to blame northerners for either being lazy or for having failed to establish a way to join the global economy when we know that in this country there are really two economies. The North and East are really not part of the mainstream national economy, nor are there many other people, because there's a pocket of 1% in this country who belong to one economy, and the 99% who don't. But particularly the North and East, particularly Northern Uganda, really including Karamoja and most of Acholi, and indeed part of Lango, just like my own village in Agongara, most of the people there don't belong to the main national economy.
And
so,
that's
Comrade
what he's
Awich, on your
trying-
manifesto thing,
Isn't that what he's trying to do, to bring them into
that would be very interesting. That is, he should try after 39 years. And I would say that if he's not done it for 39 years, how much longer do we need to give him? Do we need to give him how long? 39 times 3?
Well, that would be more than 100. But let me come to Honorable Awich. And my question to you is not just about this fire, because one would say you may not know. But the pattern of these fires that break out, and there's never accountability. Yes, the police can come out to speak, maybe on a press conference. This is what happened. We are searching for this. But we've never found a conclusive report that this is what happened. This was a person behind it. When you look at the cases of Owino, when you look at the school for the deaf in Mukono, even up to today we have not got these reports. What do you think about Ugandans achieving justice from the system itself in terms of their lives and their property that has been lost due to the fires?
First of all, I don't know whether you are talking with certainty that there is no report given, because there are so many fires and various investigations. So we need to think if there was a one-stop center where these reports are given to cross-check. Because I remember Budu.
To just interrupt you, according to police, these reports are done, but they are not given to us as the public, as the media. So we don't have access to them. Now, do we just have to blindly believe the police?
Now, you see, on a probing, you are actually admitting that there's a report, only that not
so
given
they say,
to the
according
media.
to them.
So not given to the media.
Yes.
So then that is a different thing, that the report is done, it is not given to the media. Then we should ask.
Or to the public.
That's what, because I am the public. That's what I'm
yeah.
trying to say.
Then the issues changes to why isn't it access. And by the way, for your information, you can go and write and ask to be given. There's a law called Access to Information Act, and that law provides that anybody in Uganda, or any Ugandan, has a right to ask for any information and should be given, as long as that information does not prejudice national security. And getting to know that fire occurred in this nursery school because of either a matchbox which a child negligently lit it, I don't see how it would jeopardize national security. So go ahead and ask. Okay. But at least that there is a report.
The reality is two different things, but let's continue.
Yeah, so that is it. But about justice is, if you talk of justice, now you are talking of justiciable. Justiciable meaning what you can actually get in courts of law if you sue. Because here would be on one side the victims who got burned, or the parents of the victims. Then the other one side would be the owners of the school or the boards of the school. And then if you choose to say government should have done protection, you can put Attorney General also as a party. Then you can see that justice. But I think what has always happened is that in school the nearest to justice has been if mattresses are burnt, maybe some schools choose to give back the mattress, the bed sheets, or medical treatment to those ones. So, but the justice, how to get justice in itself, means the rights holders, the person who holds the right holder, should actually seek it. And in this case, the rights holder would be the people who are burned or the parents. Then you could do that. Short of that...
When does the state come in? When does the state take over to say, since many Ugandans have got a problem in this issue, we as the state are taking it over in the prosecution?
If that is the criminal justice that you wanted, I was more into civil justice. I was into civil justice. If you wanted the criminal justice, but I think there has been prosecution. Like I remember in the case of Budu Jr. Budu Jr. people were prosecuted. Budu Jr. Fire Court, Budu Jr. people were prosecuted. Which other place had prosecutions take place? People are prosecuted and even sentenced. Isn't this rich man was also part of it? The one who, I don't know whether it is long time. I'm not getting the facts
It's around
right.
14 years ago.
But I know there have been several prosecutions. The case of Budu Jr., there was prosecution. There was investigation and prosecution. So if you want to choose the criminal justice system, I think there has been. Where there has not been, I think it is where the prosecution does not found somebody liable. Now, in the event that somebody investigations has not proved a criminal liability where criminal justice can be pursued, then civil justice is always there, civil rights, the rights holders, and that's what I was saying. So, for criminal justice procedures, I know for a fact that Budu Jr. people were prosecuted, and others that I can't remember now.
Okay. No problem.
I just need to say
minute
something
or two.
I just need to say something more. Criminal justice should be a matter of formality. Civil justice must be a matter of moral common sense. But there is the role of the state in the broader sense, that somebody must be responsible for private schools. Somebody must be responsible for public schools. Somebody must be responsible for educational institutions, particularly in this case, particularly because they've been predominantly, actually, institutions of lower learning, predominantly affected, so therefore children. Somebody must be responsible for children. Somebody must be responsible for the interests of parents. And so therefore, meaning the state, somebody must be saying who is the regulator of the schools. Every time, including in Budu Junior, when a matter happens and they carry the investigations, what we found. Then after that, what are the regulatory frameworks? What had been omitted? Who was at fault? Then after that, government is supposed to review, Ministry of Education, schools inspectorates, what was lacking, what was missing in those schools. You tighten the belts. This business of creating schools in dubious corners of garbage corners of street of Kampala to make money from the public because NRA has failed in educational systems in terms of provisions for our people should stop. And that's what we're talking about, and that really must happen. The Minister of Education, following 1, 2, 3, 5, should begin to say that, look, unless, for example, this is a free advice actually to the Minister of Education and her privileged team. That now that these things are happening, that from today on, you cannot have a school unless you have these safety nets. I mean, safety checks, in place. You cannot have a boarding school unless you can show proof that the provisions are there, including fire safety. Okay. You cannot have a boarding school with more than so many children unless you've got so many caretakers. This kind of stuff, in the very least. Yeah. That is the role of government, because the government is the parent who is supposed to be looking after us.
To tell him, because I bring it even from the other issue. For example, the rubbish, right? The garbage that happened in Kitezi. These people die, but nobody is really held to account. Yes, we just throw KCCA, this ministry. But when does government come to say, this has to be done? Because these are Ugandans and their lives matter. It feels that the government does not love Ugandans.
No, I think you can't do it more than what the congressman has said. Government roles in regulatory, in monitoring, it should be clear. And that is why I had even hinted that if somebody was displeased with the Attorney General, because all this is done by Attorney, somebody would take on Attorney General. But I think I do not see a lot of lacuna or a gap in some of these interventions that you are saying. Like what Congressman was saying in education. All those things are there. The inspector of schools, guidelines for boarding schools, monitoring system for
The
boarding
problem has
schools.
never been the laws,
All
and
the
I
things.
think you also agree with us. Many people even come to Parliament to benchmark on the laws that have been made by Uganda. So the problem has never been the laws.
It's implementation.
It's the implementation and maybe the culture. It feels like you do not have that culture for accountability or the people you serve with.
No. You know, he presented what ought to be. And I said, those are there.
Exactly. So what's
Now,
wrong?
when he presented what ought to be, and I said they are there, now you are saying they are not implemented. You know, they are implemented, only that when you implement, of course you can find a few gaps and there. For example, if you are supposed to have cameras all over the place, you would find a few schools at the time of the incident may not have camera. And that would mean that they had not done one item. Or the wiring system as demanded by regulations. You'd say it was done, it was inspected, it was checked, and the wiring is okay. But these occasions do happen. So I don't know how you are saying that the regulations is put. Like, for example, say the regulation is that there should be a fire alarm, and fire alarm is put, and still it occurs. So what would you say then? That the law was there and it wasn't implemented? So some of these things happen for one reason or another. Okay. And that is why I think if you have a specific case, that is what I'm saying, as a right holder, then it is you to raise it up. But you never have a perfect situation, even if you follow those regulations. It happens even in developed countries. Some of them can be human error. Some of them can be actually an act of God. Because an act of God, you'll recall that is even a defense in law. An act of God. Yeah, it can be a defense. For example, a situation happens where rains and destroys something, and you sue, say, a government for that. An act of God is a defense in civil defense. So it can be a human error, yes, an act of God, or an omission. So that is why it goes back to this area of systems in place for regular check, which if I say it is there, then you said every law is there, then we shouldn't go there. But why it calls for systems in place? Because things do occur. So what is important is, do you have systems that check these things?
Okay. There's always belittle the weaknesses, but it's okay. At 35 minutes past the top of the hour of 7, I'm still with Honorable Pollar, which he's the director for the NRM External Affairs, and Honorable Joseph Ochieno from Uganda People's Congress. I'm going to come back to you, and I want to start on the issue of the refugees. According to the United Nations High Commission for Refugees in this country, by the end of this year, there are going to be 2 million. As we speak, there are more than 1.5 million. And I want us to have this conversation because I feel it's pertinent time to have the conversation of the competition for resources. And before we even look at that, we are the biggest human rights holder, or the country that holds the biggest number of human rights, refugees in Africa. I think we're the second in the world. That's a credit to us. But my question to Honorable Awich is, at what cost are we housing these refugees? When we're looking at what is happening, is this a viable investment, especially by government?
Well, first of all, Uganda is credited for being, for a long time we were holding, how do they categorize it? They categorize it as the most friendly to refugees. For a long time we held that title, yes, refugee-friendly countries. But lately I'm told we have been overtaken by Turkey. That Turkey is now number 1, we are number 2.
Yes.
Reason being, Turkey takes a lot of refugees from Middle East, because Middle East lately has been on fire, and Turkey has been good enough to absorb them.
Yes.
So Turkey overtook us in refugee friendliness.
Yes.
And I'm proud about it. I have been in the world in Switzerland for 8 years, and at that time, we were carrying the crown of the most refugee-friendly.
Yes.
So you talk about this and this about Uganda, but when it came to refugee-friendliness, I would stand the giant in the house, which is good. Why? Because refugees is categorized as a humanitarian affair.
Yes.
Because somebody is running away from problems in their country and comes to you. Even in a normal setting in the village, if somebody runs from the other household, especially when you're hearing cries, you're killing me, what, and then somebody runs to your house. Normally, you take care and say, please now sleep. Have you eaten? No. If you have not eaten, please give him food. Let him eat, and please sleep there. That is a bed, that's a mattress.
Yes.
And even if the other party tries to pursue,
You try to
you restrain and said, no, if you're fighting in your home, not in my home. Please take your fight back. But this one who has run here, I'll take care.
At what cost?
Yes.
Awich?
Now, I'm coming there. Now, I just want to put a historical perspective that we have received refugees from Rwanda in the 1959 genocide, one of Rwanda.
Movement.
We had a big bulk of refugees.
Yes.
We kept them. We sent them to school. They were educated, became doctors, engineers, and others. And a majority, I must say, went to my school, in Tare School. Simply because the refugee camps were in Western Uganda, and the best school there too was in Tare. So many of them went there, including the current president. So we are proud of it as a school. Now, we also got refugees from Congo. In the Lumumba, Patrice Lumumba crisis, we got.
Yes.
Even the Anyanya 2 conflict in Anyanya 1 and 2 actually in South Sudan. But we must also note that we have also been victims. During Amin's regime, we had a big bulk in Kenya and Tanzania. And it is actually from that lesson that strengthened Uganda's resolve for refugees, because we also tested it.
Oh, it was never about the money you get from them?
No.
Okay.
No, it is the humanitarian aspect. Why it is not because of the money is because if you look at this street, there's so many refugees. What does an ordinary person get money from them? But have you seen them abusing them, quarreling with them? Some countries, they keep you in a camp. Even if you walk on the street, they'll say, stop, where is your pass? They ask for your document on the street, put you in a vehicle straight to a camp. Here we have what we call urban refugees. Very few countries have urban refugees. The type you have in Kisenyi, the type you have here. So we have them, and if it is money, which ordinary citizen is benefiting? So, at a cost, we must say we do it at a cost. Resources, as you are saying, they compete for resources. Of course, a lot of resources that we do. Starting from our sewage system. A sewage system alone is a big resource that it gets overloaded by the population that you have. The water that we drain and drink. The road that they use. Everything. But more so, even schools and health services. So this is a lot of money. So the resources, including land, the population. But these are ordinary resources that they share with ordinary wananchi. But there are also resources which you would let go because international community bring their money. But what international community bring is not a lot of money. Here we are supporting these people on our land, on our houses, on our toilet system, on our water, on our health services, on everything, on the general peace and security. They wouldn't be here if there was no security. You forget that, don't forget that there's peace, law and order here. And keeping law and order is not by grace of God. The police, the system must be set in place that nobody is being killed. So all those are resources. Therefore, we incur resources on government or individual level, but also international. The international one always come in because it is their duty. United Nations form a deliberate arm of UN called the High Commissioner for Refugees. Just like it formed for children, UNICEF, or it formed for food, World Food Program, or whatever. So there is, and human rights, there is a High Commissioner for Refugees, so they bring the money. Now, if you think that we get the money, somebody gets it, ideally this money should be budgeted to the dot. This money should be budgeted to the dot, and it should entirely go straight to the refugees. If there is any part given for administration, it will be used as such.
But
so,
there is part used for administration.
Yes, part used for administration, but it's not so big a part that you'd think that we enjoy refugees because of that. We don't enjoy refugees, at least at government level. We are just doing our role, a humanitarian role, because even the international law says don't chase them.
Okay, you're doing
refoulement. That's what is called refoulement. I
also agree with you. What you're doing is good, and it has been a credit for Uganda on the international globe. But as we are getting credit on the international globe, when it comes down here to the ground, the price of rent is increased. So many Ugandans have left these urban centers to go to the outskirts because they won't be able to pay for that money, and yet a refugee will come and pay double of the same price. Same thing with shops. They're now even indulging in what we call petty business, small business for Ugandans. So you are competing from the other level to the border level with a refugee. Isn't that breeding a bit of discontent, and how should we deal with the discontent of Ugandans here?
No, those are regulatory systems which are really considered a minor, not to the extent that would make us grab our fellow human beings and dump them back in fire. Because the other option would be to round them up and throw them there, which would be against the rule of refoulement. Refoulement is a principle under international law which says don't take them back
so the
to their problem.
should just still
that's why I'm saying it is a regulatory system, the checks and balance. It is just a challenge thrown to the authorities that we should check that up to say how do we keep with our friends who have run from problems, what should they do, what shouldn't they do. This is a normal check around. Even with the unlawful migrants, we do check on them. Sometimes they are mobile immigration police, maybe you don't seem to see it. So I'm saying that, yes, these people could be tempted to do this business, to do that, but it's just a regulatory system. We are the holders of state power. If we tell them no, they can't fail to do it. So it is a negligence or an omission of the part of government. But why I'm calling it minor, that is not so big to let us say we round you up, throw you back in fire. No, you can't do that. That's against humanity.
I think right now we're also having a question of Banyarwanda, which came from the same issue we are seeing today. But you're going to answer that maybe later. Let me come to you.
Can I say something? Because my friend may say and think I'm not bothered about it.
Yes, sir.
A lot of money is brought by international community, especially that's resources which come from abroad. We are worried, and we have told our cadres, that is the civil servants managing this thing, to be careful from corruption tendencies. Because if money is meant for a suffering lot to have come, we have time and again told them that please don't touch that money. If that money is meant for a kilo posho for a refugee, please let that kilo posho go there. So the temptation has been the management of that funds, the discipline over that funds. It is still not put right, and it worries some of us that we must guard against funds that come for refugees. If it is funds made for a kilo of beans, please, our civil servants who are there should make sure it reaches. If not, they should face the penalty of the law.
Okay, thank you so much. Honorable Ochieno, what do you think about the question of refugees in this country?
I think you've suggested something which makes it ironical. And I think the last time we were discussing something related, I said, what an irony that we're discussing the Banyarwanda question. The Banyarwanda whom UPC took full responsibility, starting from 1959, and we pushed for the then pre-independence government to welcome them. When we got our independence, we formalized it as the most progressive refugee policy in the southern hemisphere, and possibly much more progressive than some of the North European, basically Northern European nation states, if you want to call them from that way. We did. Now, that fast forward the refugee politics in this country was used and exploited by Mr. Museveni. I'm sorry to emphasize that. And in the course of that, Mr. Museveni politicized the refugee policy in this country, ironically focused on using Banyarwanda refugees against the democratically elected government of the Republic of Uganda.
I was going to hint on it when you mentioned
very important. And yet, notwithstanding that, and these refugees with the Musevenis committing excess treason against the people of Uganda, including committing the Luwero atrocities against the people of Uganda, including many of them committing excessive atrocities in the north and east of this country. For me, from a UPC perspective, I still insist that in principle, as Comrade Awich said, that two elements, the 1951 Geneva Convention that established the refugee principles of refugees in terms of, including the definition of refugees, that people with well-founded fear of persecution on particular grounds, and particularly people who are not willing to return or are unable to return to their respective countries and who find themselves in the next other country, should be granted, as a matter of international law, clear protection, which is basically what Comrade Awich was telling you, and of course for which you're being unfair to him. So, and when you run to a neighboring country or any other country, with clear, well-founded fear of persecution, return to your country, that country, any country in the world has got an absolute global right to grant you protection. I know many countries abuse it, and many people abuse it. So we did that, and we did it so impressively. And one of the things that I still want to hope that at some stage people of Banyarwanda origin will at some stage have to formally apologize to Uganda People's Congress, or at least thank Uganda People's Congress for what we did starting from 1959. Number two, of course, of course, linked to the question of to UPC, not necessarily to myself, and of course, really not to UPC. Actually, by the way, did I say to UPC only? Thank UPC, and thank UPC leadership, but thank the people of Uganda. I think it's very important for what from that time, and we did, and we have done a fantastic job since then. It has actually been consistently the case from Amin's time until today. It's important because if I don't emphasize this point, the conversation we had about the Banyarwanda the other day might lose context. And then the wave of some of the concerns you raise, including out on our streets, people decontextualize it. Before we came on air, I was telling you that when you're talking politics, it should not be about convenience. It should be a conviction and also what is right. And so sometimes political leaders like myself have got a job to take a position, and take a position on behalf of ourselves, the organizations and peoples that we represent, and indeed our countries, even if the majority of our people may not necessarily go with it. It's our job to persuade them, to explain them to them. So the question of refugees is really technically not negotiable, particularly again linked to the principle of reform, which Comrade Awich refers to, meaning therefore that you can't return somebody to a country of conflict. And it was amazing that our leadership saw these things way back in the 50s. Of course, we appreciated it, but it wasn't. Number two, linked to that, not only are we the friendliest country on this continent and sort of globally,
and we've won that
but I can tell you the tight thing, that granted Kenya and Tanzania, particularly, and Zambia, gave us huge amount of support as far as refugees are concerned during Amin's time. But also we must put for the record, including Congo, in a number of Ugandans went to Congo, Ugandans from West Nile, and Ugandans who had access to crossing, including the southern borders of Uganda. Were refugees, including our first Kampala mayor, the late Keronega, who took refuge in Congo, and in fact, they undermined his administration was from Congo. So Congo must also be put on the record amongst those core countries. Now, that said, how refugees are treated in these other countries becomes another thing. Comrade Awich was giving examples. Go to the streets of Kenya. There are stories that, including my friend Jim McKenna used to talk about the experiences where, come Fridays, police officers will want to make money, by going to joints where the refugees are either drinking or doing other things to make money from them. So it's huge, number one. And then number two, the most friendly for us then was Tanzania. And Tanzania did a fantastic job then, of course, in Nyerere hosting Dr. Bota and the majority of Ugandan refugees, to the extent that they actually did for us, that they did, supported us really very actively from 1970, late 71 actually, including several times back here until the late 80s, although mid-80s, although Nyerere went ahead and spoiled it by dubiously supporting Mr. Museveni. But Tanzania was generally quite good with us. In recent times, I don't want to name other countries, but I think that's important for Ugandans. I know an African country where Ugandan refugees, including today, have to go and marry, Ugandan refugee men have to go and marry or date citizens of those countries in order basically to just run Rtd Awich a mere business like a kiosk. So these are very tricky things. Still does not undermine the principle that we should be talking about as far as catering for refugees. Fast forward to where we are. Fast forward to where we are. I've lived in other countries and I've seen how other countries do, both in Europe and Africa. In Britain, for example, where I went and I lived as a refugee in a way, they've got categories. If you qualify for refugee status, you clearly become a mini quote citizen with certain privileges. If you don't, there are categories in terms of where you are and where you're not. Now, of course, those are developed economies in different kind of states. This could take people to mini camps. But I want to come back quickly to Uganda. There are camps, then there are urban refugees. What I don't know is whether the people we see around Kampala are generally all of them refugees, people who basically qualify as refugees, people who've been screened or not. Now, for me, who's actually a forced migration scholar and a campaigner on these issues around the world, it will be very contradictory for me to suggest that we should begin rounding up people in the streets of Kampala simply because they look like the other, or we suspect that they're the other. I think it would be generally inhuman. Some of the concerns, though, is when we begin to talk about some of the businesses that some of these people get involved in. It is believed that some of these people's businesses are businesses that are linked to certain people, Rtd Awich, in the state, known by the state, or certain special categories of people that really create resentment among the citizens. Are they fronts to certain interests in our country? And if so, aren't they likely to become, again, part of a strategic national security issue, almost like the Banyarwanda, sort of became, but, and now, ironically, we have a Banyarwanda question for which you guys and your government argue that seemingly there is a national security question. Partly for that before, and I didn't know it would come onto this. I have been wondering, because I've been thinking strategically, how should we manage this as a country? In other words, if our UPC was in government, what is it that we would do? I've got some ideas, some thoughts, but it's a bit of a longer conversation, but quite critically, Rtd Awich, this is an urgent matter. Now, when it comes to the question of services, I think is how much we educate and inform the citizens. The problem here with your regime is that they've done so badly, as far as public services are concerned, that citizens have got sort of temptation almost close to mini rights to think that refugees are getting services that the citizens don't have access to or much more privileged. That tends to be perception globally by them. And I'm talking about forced migration issue, which is something that I know quite well. Those will happen. So it's the responsibility of the states, respective states, in this case Ugandan government, to show and to prove that that's not the case. But in any case, again, what Rtd Awich was saying, if the UNHCR, the refugee agency, sends money for specialist education in refugee camps somewhere in Moyo, of course these guys will build schools, and I know some of the people involved. They'll build schools, and these guys will be going to schools. But if side by side with that lies a shack, that NRA has forgotten about, meaning an ordinary school for ordinary Ugandan citizens, that is an imperative. But what is it? It just simply becomes an indictment that NRA does not care about their people, but actually UN cares about refugees. But what the neighbors in those places don't know that actually those refugee programs are being funded by foreign governments. But at the end of the day, the burden of responsibility still lies with the states. So the communication issue, and information issue in between here. But whatever the case, our position, generous position, must and should continue. How it's managed is a different matter. And finally, point about these thieves who eat our public money. The public servants who steal refugee agency money are as criminal and as dirty as people who steal mabatis.
Okay.
Because those are amongst the most vulnerable people in society.
Thank you so much. You've reminded us of that particular incident. We have 3 minutes to the top of the hour. Let's go for a short commercial break. When we come back, I'll ask Honorable Awich if what we are seeing today may not be what happened with the Banyarwanda. Shall we not see an evolution of the Banyarwanda question? And of course, we shall delve into the conversation of the day. Can we attain a peaceful transition in this country? Is that something that we can see or something that is in the far future? My name is Edgar Matthew Karahanga. I'm still with two candid gentlemen. One gentleman is from the National Resistance Movement and the other is from Uganda People's Congress. Let's go for a short commercial break.
The Alternative Dig Talk. Real issues, real talk.
Hey Teddy, have you noticed how little attention science and health issues get in the media?
Totally, Edgar, yet science information is very important.
Yeah, for sure. That's why the Health Journalists Network is here.
How can they help?
They are a group of journalists dedicated to advancing public understanding of healthcare issues through impactful reporting on health and science.
Oh, really?
Yes, they meet up every month with scientists and researchers, policymakers, and activists at the science media cafes. They then relay what they discuss to the public.
Does that benefit us?
Oh yes, very much so. This helps with health and science literacy for a healthy Ugandan society.
Okay. I love getting informed about science and health issues. Health information makes all the difference between life and death. I'll look them up and engage them.
That's great. They are based all over the country.
Oh, okay. That's interesting, and they should be making real impact.
They are empowering health communities through journalism. Journalists can save lives just like doctors.
At first, we hit your gadgets with our state-of-the-art digitalized mobile studio with the debate on the road behind the wheels. Later, we launched our magnificent studios located on Plot 1A, Sewagude Close, Lukulinanganda, Machindye, Kampala, where we bring to you our must-watch shows like The Mighty Drive, Monday to Friday, 8 a.m., Hotline, Mondays, 7 p.m. As for legal matters, Twins at Bar, Tuesdays, 11 a.m. Wednesdays, 6 p.m. is Afro-Caribbean Link, where we connect Africa with the Caribbean. Voltage on Thursdays, 7 p.m., featuring a youthful panel. Interface with Dr. Kiza Besije every Friday, 12 p.m. with his call to action against injustices. Snap Talk, Saturdays, 6 p.m. with the trio. A must-watch, The Political Dice, Sundays, 8 p.m. with the duo that never stammers, and so much more. Watch us live on all our social media platforms. We are The Alternative Digitalk. Real issues, real talk.
The Alternative Dig Talk. Real issues, real talk.
You.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, from that short commercial break. It's exactly 8 p.m. You have 1 hour to end this particular program. Feel free to continue sending some of your messages. I'm going to be reading them subsequently as we continue with the program. Lastly, on this issue, sir, I wanted to ask you, shall we not see the Banyarwanda question metamorphose again in the refugees we have? Because they came originally as refugees. Up to today, we are having issues. Isn't this something that can come up, especially for the kind of the refugees that we have today?
I don't know the kind of issues you have in mind. For example, in the case of Banyarwanda, you can categorize two issues. Issues in their way of going back, or you are saying issues Like,
even that we are facing today, they are part of the Banyarwanda, they're in our constitution, but then on ground they are segregated, they are not from Uganda. So those confusions.
no, it can't be now because we have the one we are seeing on this street. We don't have a common border, so they're easily identifiable. Eritreans, Somali, Ethiopian. I don't think there are many Ethiopians. The Ethiopians here are really migrants who are doing business. I don't think they are refugees. Maybe there are one or two. But the one of Rwanda, if we need to set it clear also, as you know, the schedule in our constitution, third schedule, lists all indigenous communities. Actually, what alphabetically. I think number 17, Banyarwanda is number 17 in that list of indigenous communities. The reason here because the Banyarwanda who were at the border, the people of Bufumbira, during the constitution making, they chose to say they are Bafumbira. They identified themselves with the mountain. Now, this Ruzindana, Captain Gad Gasatura, they said for us, the border cut us this side. Just like we have borders cutting actually across Bateso in Kenya, Bagiso in Kenya, everybody is across. By the way, for your information, it is only my tribe, which doesn't cut across Uganda.
He's boasting.
Even you, Batora in Congo. So it is only us who are true Ugandans, the Langis. We don't border any part of the country, but all the other tribes do. So the Banyarwanda in Tungamu said, we don't have a big river. We don't have a big mountain. So how should we be called? How? He said, for us, we are Banyarwanda. We are cut by a border. However, we are Ugandans. It is just the border. Remember in the east, Agri Awich was a minister here. The border has cut part of his brother there, was a vice president. So this thing happens across the border. There was Mudi Awich, vice president in Kenya. There was Agri Awich, a minister in Uganda. So these things happen. So the case of Banyarwanda, that. Now, what is bringing problems currently is that there are people who are outside this one, who are calling themselves Ugandans. And they want to say they are Banyarwanda. Now, what has happened in the Ministry of Internal Affairs is that there's a desk officer, say for Karamoja. If you come and say you are Karamoja, there's a checklist that have been given how to check you are Karamoja. So if you come from Western, there's a similar thing. So many of these don't meet the test of Banyarwanda cut by border. So, and they have failed, so they are hanging there. So, I wonder why, how they have failed also to be Ugandans. So, but otherwise, it is maybe the refugees who want to claim citizenship. But our Banyarwanda cut by border, the Ruzindana, the Gad Gasatura, and many others, they are, by their right, Ugandans, although they carry the name Banyarwanda. So, we are not going to have the case of South Sudan, for example. South Sudanese, I don't think they have, you never can tell, but I don't think they will have the aspect of going back to fight the way the Rwandese did, or the aspect of claiming citizenship the way it is here. Because in the border of Sudan, we have clear demarcation, the Acholis. Although they get to know that the Acholis in South Sudan are bigger than the Acholis in Uganda. Same thing with the Logubara, particularly Kakwa. Kakwa, the tribe of Amin. They are bigger Kakwa in Sudan than here. So, but that scenario seems not to exist. So, I conclude by saying I do not see a similar scenario coming up in the Rwandese thing. If somebody wants to acquire citizenship, like say an Eritrean, in Uganda, an Eritrean in Uganda, he will have to apply for citizenship as provided for under the constitution, because you have to apply. So they will have to follow the due process. The law is clear about acquiring citizenship. So I do not see a concern for a situation of a gain happening, the Rwandan style. The Rwandan style is because we share a common border, and it was tricky handling it.
He actually means the Rwandan style, but another round of Rwanda.
But
basically, that's what. So it's very specific about Rwanda, by the way, not any other, isn't it?
yes, sir. But allow me to delve into the other conversation. I want to start with you, sir. Please continue sending some of your comments. I'll be reading them as we continue with the program. Remember, we're streaming live on Digitalk TV, but also at the Alternative Uganda page. So 2 pages. And we're also interfacing both on Facebook, but also on YouTube. So you can send those messages concurrently on either platform, and we'll be able to read them subsequently. Sir, I want us to come to the question of transition, or the politics of today especially that lead to the transition. And according to the roadmap as we are seeing it, or the politicking that is happening, Mr. Museveni is coming back in 2026 to be on the ballot. Or at least according to the CDF.
I told you so.
Yes, you said so. But my question is to ask how prepared you are as the opposition to take over or to even compete against this gentleman. And remember, I'm asking this question basing on what has been happening, the divisions, the disgruntlements, the corruption cases that is lingering around the opposition of this country. How best can Ugandans trust you people to be able to not only take power, but to even compete against Mr. Museveni?
You're asking me so many questions
Yes,
at the
sir.
same time, as if they're all legitimate questions. They're not, because
Yes.
we are not talking about a democracy. Uganda is not a democracy, and has not been a democracy since that Saturday, July 27th, 1985. Nor does the NRA of Mr. Museveni believe in democracy. The guy clearly said so in 1980, 81, and actually I was watching part of his campaign rally speech somewhere, where others were talking about hospitals, schools. For him, he was talking about militarizing Uganda.
You also mentioned some of those issues.
You could see that his emphasis was that.
Yes.
Militarizing Uganda and teaching people everywhere how to get arms. No wonder now the best gift, monetized gift for people from northern Uganda is being askaris. And these days there's so many northern Ugandan askaris around Kampala that even some very beautiful girls from northern Uganda are askaris. So I know. So
That is supposed to be incognito.
no, it's very clearly open there. But no, so this guy has never been a Democrat, has never believed in democracy. Again, as I said, I've told this program that in 1980, I don't think it was your program actually, and there was a delegation of members of the Military Commission and the National Consultative Conference, the Council of the Interim Parliament. And in that delegation included Muwanga, a number of people, including Dr. Moses Apiliga. And Apiliga tells me this. And so they visited Nyerere, they went to Nyerere, they seeking support for preparations for multi-party elections. And so the commission included Museveni, Muwanga, and others. So Dr. Apiliga was amongst the parliamentary members, going. So they went to Tanzania, they went to Zambia, I'll just mention 3 very quickly, and Mozambique. And in all those cases, Museveni was arguing that Uganda was not ready for democracy and was not ready to return to multipartyism. And I will want to say this, comes out in my memoirs, that the only person who nodded with Mr. Museveni in approval is actually Samora Machel. and according to that, Samora was nodding because quite clearly, he had a particular thing with Museveni. The others too did, But remember, Samora Machel was not necessarily a believer in multipartyism. Machel had been completely convinced that Museveni was a real disciple of revolutionary polity of the communist-style Cuban style,
Which he did.
And that was, of course, it wasn't. And that is what Mr. Museveni is bringing to Uganda. So Machel was nodding because he said, yes, here we're going to implant the Cuban-style thing, in Uganda. But really, in terms of the substance, Museveni didn't convince even Samora Machel. Because in any case, that was a conversation that had taken place after the Moshi Unity Conference. And the Moshi Unity Conference had resolved in setting up the National Consultative Council, setting up the various commissions, and also setting up, under which the dates by which, the timetable by which Uganda would return to multi-party. And that was 18 months after the fall of Kampala, no later. And remember that from coming off Lule, Binaisa, they had been fighting. By Binaisa's time, they are now going for umbrella politics. So there was a push to change, the process, including you can call it the Moshi Declaration, as it were. And that led, in many cases, to eventually, including the overthrow of Binaisa, amongst many other things. But anyway, so elections had to take place. So as of December 1980, Museveni was really not a convinced Democrat. I've told this program that you can see that, well, he goes to set up UPM, but UPM was basically a front for causing problems by him, a few of his friends, and later eventually we knew that he had a key that he would use for the Banyarwanda, something that we said much earlier, to cause havoc in this, and that's what they did. But anyway, so in other words, post that, there is no democracy, and we've not had in democracy.
Okay, sorry for interrupting you. You're giving reasons which are from without about Mr. Museveni. I want you to introspect.
It's not about
as the opposition.
No. It's not about Museveni.
Yes, sir.
It is about making Ugandans understand Museveni and NRM, and so therefore the illusion that we're in a democracy, and therefore then the illusion, including the illusion amongst political opposition, therefore, that come 2026, we are going for democratic elections. It will not be, in as long as Museveni is around. We are not going to have a free, fair, competitive election. Because going to an election that asks us preparedness for opposition, and I'll tell you about our shortcomings as political opposition. Quite clearly, the elections that comes next year, if you see what happened in 2021, it's like basically, like Norbert Mao would say, that you send us swimming, and then others are going swimsuits, and then here you're putting guys in gumboots and things like that, and then you tie their hands behind, and then you expect them to swim anywhere towards the end. It will not happen, and it cannot happen. So it's basically that. But that said, I have always argued, and in fact, when I was putting this flyer, which I always do into various platforms in which I am, and this I think was specifically Facebook, and I think this person may not have seen that I saw what he wrote. He told me that this conversation was a waste of time. I do not agree. This conversation is not a waste of time. It's a very important conversation. The fact that Uganda is under siege does not mean that we should do nothing. And the fact that Uganda is a dictatorship does not mean that we should do nothing. Okay. And the fact that actually Mr. Museveni is what I've said, and NRM has got the power that they've got, does not mean that we should do nothing, meaning that we can just leave it like that. I think it's possible for us to push for democracy beyond where we managed to put it, to return political parties in 2005. I think it's possible for political parties to organize more and better. And it's possible that while we call Mr. Museveni and his regime a dictatorship and his organization a dictatorship, where he and his son can play the things for which the witches can just watch. Which is a very disciplined Henry Carter, works extremely hard at the party headquarters. But, when you see the headlines that come from, Museveni's son, directly impacting on Awich's party, I'm sure the civil servants in NRA possibly don't sleep, and if you see some of the contradictions that are taking place. So that is that. But I'm now bringing us as opposition.
Yes, sir.
That should not stop us from organizing. That should not stop us from mobilizing. And that, after we've criticized NRA, which we do, and quite rightly, should be the motivation for us to do right. So therefore, in the political opposition parties, except the bigger ones, the named ones, except for Gregory Mugisha Muntu's political organization, ANT, which I don't know anything public, but I know one or two things in private in their organization. All of them are in a public mess. But I must say that even in Comrade Mugisha Muntu's political organization, within the last 3 weeks, I've got two members, from his group, who are prepared to be part of Uganda People's Congress should we sort out our leadership question. Now, we're in a very sad state, political position in this country. DP has got issues. I don't see how DP sorts out its issues between now and the next elections and make them equipped enough, basically even to reclaim aspects of their space within Buganda, and so therefore go outside Buganda and convince Ugandans that they're a viable opposition party of leadership. Whatever's happening in FDC, I don't see them, for example, I'm just using particular yardsticks, reorganizing and being mobilized sufficient enough to reconvince the rest of the country away from FDC stronghold, that they are a viable political party, whatever names comes from Katonga or anybody else, you know, and to do so, to have in numbers enough, for instance, to beat NUP. Within NUP, I am worried that I don't know what's going to happen to make them regalvanized enough to sort out the Mpuga, Chagulanyi issue and the perception thing that has developed in the last 4 years, including some of my own criticism that I think they have not done enough to make the best use of the wave they had in 2021. And they've not done enough to put NRA to the wall, particularly the violence that was meted onto the opposition, and particularly in this case the NUP opposition, particularly in Buganda and around Kampala, that they could have done a lot more to do that. And so I'm not quite sure. And yet that said, NRA cannot sing beautiful songs that they're going to have any wave beyond the fact that they're controlled by the power of the state which they're using. Because in NRA, notwithstanding the fact that Mr. Museveni's son has said that he's not going to support his father.
Let's start on that. I'm going to bring you back to that particular issue. But let me first come to him.
But because I didn't conclude, if you don't mind. Because I didn't mention you.
You're going to
okay, fair enough.
Because I wanted us to talk about the son himself.
Fair enough.
But let me come to you, sir. And he says that the opposition is in a public mess and there is hopelessness in terms of the elections. Not many people believe that this election will be free and fair, at least basing on some of the track record that you have as the NRM. My question to you, this seems to be a very easy road for you. But
it's not.
It seems to be. What do you think about that? Do you think 2026 is up for grabs? Because as we're talking, there is no political party apart from the NRM that is firm, all looking ready to take you guys on. What do you think about that issue?
2026, yes. But you see, when we came here, you had sent us a topic. And I kind of prepared my mind to that. And I think I would answer your question while aligning to the topic that you sent. It will basically answer. But let me first delve myself a few seconds or minutes into what Comrade Ochieno raised about Museveni not being for democracy. Maybe to some extent he's right. Because President Museveni's concretized views was an umbrella government. He was really in for a movement government because he really believed that the Uganda or the African context would not run a multi-party the way we see in America, the Democrats, the Republican, the Labour Party and the Conservative Party in the UK. For him to believe that these parties needed class formation when the society is developed. His biggest fears was that when the parties are put the democracy type we had, people would fall back to their tribalism, people will fall back to religion, people will fall back to sectarian position. So he strongly believed in umbrella. Umbrella meaning all of us together. And that is why even his formation of a political party, he called it a movement. Remember, Museveni's political party was UPM, Uganda Patriotic Movement. So he generally despises the multi-party democracy as we thought it. But still, what he thought was inside a movement system could be democratized because there's not a one-fitted-all democracy. For him, it was only against the multi-party democracy as we saw it. So he really insisted on an umbrella system of governance. And that is why NRM came as a movement again. And even then, after the world had closed on us and made us hold a referendum, or even supported this and that through other means, we still, on registration, on record, we still prefer to call ourselves a movement. And even in the constitution, it says there are two political systems. There's multi-party and the movement system. Only that when one is in place, the other one is in abeyance. So I could really say that President Museveni has really had a low opinion about the multi-party democracy. Not that it's against democracy, but it's against multi-party democracy.
But what does that then make him? Because he is on record to have said that by 2026 there would be no opposition. And we actually see
that is what we are. So what I'm saying. Then it takes us to the definition of democracy. What is democracy? Does democracy mean multi-party? Is democracy synonymous to multi-party?
Why is it that Uganda has a way it defines its democracy? Democracy is democracy.
You see, democracy is really not...
Says this is our democracy.
Democracy is not multi-party. Democracy is democracy. If you want to go the primary way, the Greek definition, the Greek definition of democracy is there. But we all know the ingredients of democracy. Yes. Personally, I believe that if you have a good movement system without multi-party, you can have democratic system. In fact, I've repeatedly
I know your movement is...
and I've repeatedly said, during the movement, there was true democracy. I have told you, Karanga, that during the movement system, when it comes to censoring a minister, Sam Kutesa or Jim Mwezi, even the Attorney General of government would vote in favor of the censor. That was real democracy. But now, I have repeatedly told you that if a government minister walks naked from City Square to Parliament, and you want to say, we shall say he was bewitched by opposition. We gang around and defeat your argument. So movement in itself had democracy. So I want to insist that President Museveni does not really think democracy equals multi-party. Democracy is democracy, but it is not synonymous to multi-party. That is what he had believed in, and that's why I believed in umbrella, and that's why I continued to form a movement, and that is why we registered not a political party, and that is why under the constitution we still have two political systems. So I plead guilty for President Museveni, and rightly so. He believes in it, and that is his belief.
You go.
Okay. And because democracy doesn't mean multi-party. Who tells you that democracy means multi-party? We can be democratic without multi-party. So I come back to the issue of peaceful transition. I think that's a broader thing. Because you're asking me about the 2026. But
the helplessness of elections, the feeling that when you're entering elections, it's a time of war. And this has been lamented by the Minister for Constitutional Affairs, saying that every time we enter the electoral season, it comes with a bit of caution. People will die. There's a bit of mourning generally. It's never about civic
Some people go for pre-exile.
Yeah, but I want to allay the fears. I want to allay the fears of people who think like that.
Who know that?
You see, NRM has been here for a while.
Yes, sir.
And we should just learn to reap from the fruits of NRM. In that we have a strong constitution now, we have law and order. We have even public service, which can organize a handover with all the instruments. Ceremonies are there.
But it has never been
We have strong institutions to guard it. So take it from me that the being around for NRM has set institutional framework for a transition, and it will happen. Now, I also take recognition of the fact that there are many parties are fighting. I mean political parties, not organization. For us, we are not fighting.
You're fighting.
We thought they were fighting, but it looks like they are
yours is worse.
Not fighting.
They are not fighting.
And I like to just state signs of fighting or evidence of fighting. Many parties are in courts, including UPC. Multiple court cases. Others have been ruled and others have not been ruled. Okay?
Do we know why, though?
Yeah.
We should mention why they are in those
yeah.
catastrophes. There is
And
an
then we
invisible
also
hand
know,
don't mention.
we also know that apart from the parties who are in courts, and then you also have parties like FDC who practically have 2 head offices, one on Katonga Road, one on Entebbe Road. These are not rumors, because somebody would say you are peddling rumors, but it is public
Same
notice.
with UPC. Same
Public
with
notice,
DP.
yes. Same with DP. So we really sympathize with them, and we wish them well. We wish them recovery, because we want all political parties to compete in an orderly way.
But
for us, we
the
are ready.
invisible hand
To,
will
to
be-
compete with the movement.
Because that, I want to say also, for us in the movement,
Because your chairperson has been linked to all those grievances.
for us
those
in the
political
movement,
parties.
for us in the movement, we believe that contradictions is part of life. And we have what we call minor contradictions and major contradictions. Major contradictions happen in NRM, even at the secretariat that I live in. But these are normal occurrence of contradictions that you're only judged by how you resolve them. In our case, we have the party constitution. We even have code of conduct attached. We are the only party, I think, in Uganda with a detailed code of conduct which has tested it in court. In court, in that the party court, where we try party officials and punish them, either by dismissal or what it has happened at various levels. So we do this because we know contradictions arise. But we have not yet come across a major contradiction that can threaten to split us. And therefore, we are happy about that. But remember also, we believe that contradictions, when resolved, you move to a next level. Contradictions are healthy. Even with us, we have a top management. In that top management, chaired by the Secretary General, often contradiction in terms of views, in terms of methods of work come up. But once it is resolved, you move to a next level.
Okay.
So we believe it. Therefore, with the institutional frame in place, and that the NRM has put in place, and our ability to resolve our contradictions, we are quite sure that we can have an election where we elect a president apart from President Museveni, and we are over.
Oh.
We have our system. We come to Nambole, we get a flag bearer. We shall get a flag bearer in Nambole.
Okay, let me first read some of the comments that were made by Mr. Muhoozi Kainerugaba. Producer, if you can just pop up some of those messages for our viewers to actually watch. And this is a gentleman who is the CDF, the Chief of Defense Forces in this country, but also Davos as the first son. These are some of the remarks that he has made. At Muhoozi M. Kainerugaba, Muhoozi Kainerugaba, as for the corrupt and thieves, Mzee is going to get rid of all them. We will not accept state capture in Uganda. There will be no Guptas here. Mzee knows that the revolution demands the removal of bad seed as a minimum.
I haven't seen that.
He talks about
I've not seen that one. Where are you
state
picking it
capture.
from?
It's there. It's on his Twitter platform. Please pop up all the messages that have been made by this gentleman. Now this other one is still at M. Kainerugaba, his official platform with a blue tick, verified. No civilian will lead Uganda after President Museveni. The security forces will not allow it. The next leader will be a soldier or policeman. Then there's also maybe one last one that you could pop up for us that you could watch. Those are two. One he talks, okay. This one is done. There is also a third one as producer is looking for it. Here he talks about state capture, but I'm going to come to you, sir. And there is also another one for the soldiers. No soldier will be, no civilian.
Yeah, that's already been shown.
President of this country. Let's start on that issue. What do you think about the CDF?
It's scary, but I need to conclude what I was saying, just to confirm that Comrade Rich was very generous, to confirm that they're not a party. My throat is gone hoarse for the last several years saying that NRM is not a party, is an organization that they quite insist.
Yes.
But the scary bit of it is actually that, yes, these guys come 1995 and then that constitution, then come 2005 when we defeated them in court to push for pluralist polity.
Yeah.
Instead of them either reverting to UPM, they retained their movement thing and came with the whole movement thing, and you can see nothing has changed. The only thing is that, well, it is basically creating an office for it in Chadon Road. So basically, the NRA thing of 1986 has been ruling this country. And they're ruling as a political organization, not as a political party. And of course, from top, from Mr. Museveni as the head, and then his top cadres at the Chadondo Road, backed by Comrade, which is a complete convictionist that political parties are bad, they're doing it. So in any case, you don't really expect anything more from that. But then I want to dismiss one thing, the nonsense that Comrade Museveni sold against political parties. That political parties were tribalistic and that they built on religious foundations. I want to repeat that with the exception of DP, that was really founded out of Catholic interests, you know. No other political, we are nationalists. You know, we are not built and founded on religion. In any case, I'm a fantastically close, organized, very proud Catholic with the Rosary. You know, so I am the Obote's chief and the future of the UPC of tomorrow. So no. Uganda National Congress and Uganda People's Congress was founded for the peoples of Uganda, African nationalists, you know, pushing for fair wages, demanding for rights, independence now, emancipation of African peoples. So it was purely ideologically driven. Granted, the only Anglican link, and I think it's important, I know we don't have time, was the fact that the Protestants had been substantially privileged in this country, Comrade Awich, from the 1892 Anglo-Catholic War in Uganda, where the Catholic Protestants won with Mengo, and Catholics were marginalized. Protestants, although a minority in Uganda, would have been predominantly much more privileged, which is sort of the nature of society. And so by 1950 or thereabout, most of the people in polity or perhaps public life, including public life and the British colonial government, were predominantly Protestants. And then the founder leader of Uganda National Congress happened to be Protestant. Granted, the majority of the founding members were Protestants, but it was not a Protestant political party. Okay. So finally, in terms of base, UPC's second base is actually Bushenyi in Ankole. Yes. UPC's third base is actually Bugisu. Okay. UPC's fourth base, and they might even be angry with me for me calling them that, is actually Teso, which is now kind of dominated. And then come to Bukeda and around the country. Yeah. With the exception of in Buganda and parts of Bunyoro, the rest of the country, where you can nearly call them mere strongholds. In any case, in 1980, notwithstanding the debates we continue to have to talk about 1980 general elections, which sometimes really irritate me. UPC won convincingly, swept across the country, except in Busoga, where, of course, it became 100%, but some DP leaders, granted, crossed to UPC after that. And then passed, as I said, parts of Ankole and purely in Bunyoro, and, of course, Buganda, where we only won one seat. So to suggest that we are not a nationalist political party is a nonsense. Okay. But, finally, the next election, although I said it, that political parties are weak, and I've not talked about UPC, you know, Comrade Awich, you're not going to enjoy the sweepings thing that you said. I was only critiquing FDC and NUP as the bigger political parties, that they may not necessarily have the wave of sweeping the other end of it. In part because of the challenges they're facing, but primarily because of the impasse, the block that any political organization which is allergic to political parties is going to continue putting against them. Finally, of course, with my Uganda People's Congress, of course, we're imprisoned in court because we don't have a leader, and as Obote, official leader, as Obote said that the best way to kill a snake is to cut off his snake, and Obote was saying that of Museveni at those days, and of course Mr. Museveni seemed to have done it thus far quite well, meaning that his courts have held us hostage. We do not have a political party leader. But I want to tell you that whatever happens, as of today, even without a leader, UPC's possible numbers in the National Assembly is looking extremely good. The very bare minimum, it would possibly be double. Okay. So that's basically what I wanted to say.
Question, the question of Muhoozi's comments.
Oh, it is scary. It is scary. It is scary. It's scary nationally, but it's a manifestation of what's happening in the House of Daud. That Mr. Museveni's own son threatened him and abuses Museveni's appointees and things like that, and yet at the same time it's a CDF. No, Comrade Awich, as a political organization, you do us a favor that somebody who's an army commander wants to associate with you guys, I think you should try and denounce him. Number two, when you next meet with your chairman, please tell your chairman to make sure that he plays by the rule of the political organization and to try and help to stop bringing your political organization into disrepute by doing the right thing as a chairman of a political organization, especially chairman who also has got the burden of responsibility as a national leader. But that said, again, I'm not particularly surprised. I think Mr. Museveni and his son are playing Ugandans. I think it's a blackmail. I think it's creating and causing more fear. Muhoozi may have been rained on by many other people that he should not challenge his father. I think he genuinely wanted it, but his father was not yet about to let go. They've managed it well. Of course, they've got the state power. But at this material time, I think it's an insult to Ugandans for young Muhoozi to say this. Completely unacceptable. If I had the capacity, I would sue him. I said on this program here that there's so many able leaders that could replace Mr. Museveni, including Rtd Awich. And Rtd Awich, now I think you've been qualified because you're a soldier, that at least you can now replace Mr. Museveni. So now if you replace Mr. Museveni as head of NRA, no, but I'm being very serious because we're talking transition.
Yes.
It will be not a transition from my perspective, but it will be the beginning of a process in which we're able to have a genuine national debate.
This gentleman that is mentioning these things is the head of the coercive arm.
That is the scary thing.
The military.
Meaning, therefore, that perhaps if
he has the power to
if Awich expressed interest in the leadership, maybe because Awich is a soldier, but maybe he would say, "How dare you spoil the fortune of my father?" So no, we have got a state capture, and we've said so from the beginning, and that's what I was repeating earlier. No, we are not a democracy. We are a military dictatorship, and we are a military dictatorship led by Comrade Museveni and predominantly now by his family. And my own urge is that Ugandans rally around an alternative consensus and compel Mr. Museveni and his family to behave and to recognize that we've been fine and generous with them, but also those of us in opposition to be responsible enough to make sure that we convey a message to them, not of sending them to Lozira, but being generally nice to them so that we're able to rebuild the post Mr. Museveni, which is possible.
So we need to massage some egos.
Not massage, basically act responsibly.
Okay. Yeah. Let me come to you, Honorable. What do you take of these statements made by this gentleman, the CDF?
Well, the CDF is a very educated person in informal schooling. Remember that he went to the best two secondary schools, King's College Budu and St. Mary's Kisubi. And he went to the university in UK. He has also really educated himself in military colleges.
He has been to Sandhurst.
Yeah. So he is alive to Article 208. Article 208 provides that the military is subordinate to civil authority. And that is why even the Minister of Defense appears before a committee of Parliament, Committee on Defense. Did you know that the Committee of Defense oversees Minister of Defense? And they are supposed to appear and bring accountability?
Yes, yes, you can say that Oboth is bigger than Muhoozi. In fact, Muhoozi should be reporting to Oboth. But is that the reality?
It is. He salutes him.
Yeah, but is it
even a state minister? So, but let me flow. So I was saying that...
yes, please.
I was saying that... no, that's
yes.
I was saying that Muhoozi...
Okay.
I'm saying that Muhoozi is a very educated person, militarily, and also in formal schooling. He went to the best school. So he's alive to Article 208 of the Constitution. And the article...
Which says?
The article says that... the article says that the
military is subordinate.
Yeah, to the civil authority.
It's okay, you can continue.
Yeah.
As I'm looking for it here.
No, it is here.
Oh, okay.
It is 202.
Okay.
Me 208 2.
Okay, 2. The Uganda People's Defense Forces shall be non-partisan, national in character, patriotic, professional, disciplined, productive, and subordinate to the civilian authority as established under this constitution.
Yeah, so he's very aware about that. But what I want to say here is, I read beyond what you posted because it was tickling my mind. How did he come to do this? Did you know a post before that? What he was replying to? He was replying to his friend Peter Mwesige. Peter Mwesige is a known journalist. He had been in the Observer and many newspapers. He's a very, very senior journalist here. So it seems Mwesige is a friend to Peter. And it looks like this is more of their friendly jokes. Because a post before that, it was a poke from Peter.
Which one? The one for civilian?
No, the one for saying
for
that the one where he said the military will not, no civilian will. So Peter poked him. Peter poked him and asked him. I told him, actually, we shall hold elections and we hope the military will respect and what. So it was more or less like if you see that before this post, above, there was a post from Peter Mwesige. And it looks more like they were just joking. And therefore it was a response. But it is put out of context.
They said he was joking when he said
no, but it is put out of context. Because, and you see, in a editorial policy, in a editorial policy, if you choose to highlight a part, even in drafting, even reading a legal provision, you may miss the meaning. Because you just choose to pick that part for interest purposes. Because if you're being honest, read the whole thing. You'd see that it was actually provocation, a joke from Peter Mwesige.
By the way. It has already been deleted.
Yes, but before this, it was Peter Mwesige. So I am saying that Jerome Moses is alive to the provision of Article 208, and only that this post, in my opinion, was a post where it was him communicating with his friend Peter Mwesige.
Is this gentleman above the law? Because when you look at the past, he was the commander of the land forces, but he was going around politicking, holding organizations in what they called birthday parties. And nothing was done to him.
So are we done with this?
No, I'm giving you a context.
Because you're giving me another question.
You're bringing it from a perspective of it was just a joke.
A joke.
And for me, I'm trying to tell you the pattern of jokes that this gentleman has made. Aren't these bad jokes, sir?
Well, very, very scary jokes.
No, they are jokes. You see,
one
time, you know this cartoon, Ikanya. Ikanya once entered a bar, and he told people in the bar that when I drink, everybody should drink. And people started drinking. And then after they have drunk, he said, and when I pay, people should pay. He said, why did you tell us to? But he said, but if you agree with me that if I drink, you drink, then you should agree when I pay, I pay. So why is it that when he says he's joking, you don't want to believe it? You only want to believe that it's serious.
Yeah,
did he write there that it was a joke?
You know, I'm taking you back to the Kenyan case. Yes. The Kenyan case, he said he would go to Kenya. Okay? You believed it. You believed it, okay? Like a Kenya said, drink, people believed it. And now when he said, I'm joking, you don't want to believe.
But Moses is not a Kenya.
You don't. Why do you have selective beliefs in what he's saying? You believe in this, you don't believe in the other. So, he's a human being like others because you're insisting on the pattern of jokes. He's a human being like others, and he has friends like he has Peter Mwesige, and then you can see he's communicating to Peter Mwesige, and something comes
When
from
does the military hold him to account? At least you have been in the military literally all your life. You know how these things are done. That if someone
are supposed to be done.
Or supposed to be done. How do they deal with such indiscipline? Do you even consider that indiscipline?
Or don't you?
Well, taking the context that it is, even if you take somebody to court, even the court will take the context. that this was a communication between two people, and it wasn't really that. It was between him and people. I'm just wondering why you wouldn't bring the other one of Peter Mwesige that he responded.
So you don't believe?
So
you don't believe
the
the producer?
editing, the deliberate editing.
I want to first, let me confirm, because
the deliberate
all,
editing.
I don't think it was a repost, as you claim.
Yes.
But even if it were, you have responsibility over what you say, over the office you hold. But let me not put you on the spot, sir. Maybe when we get Mohozi, we shall put him on the spot. But let me come to you as we come to the end of this discussion, sir. How does this play out? Because the reality is, in these jokes, this gentleman is actually poking.
It's not a joke, yeah.
He's actually poking a lot of issues. He is breaking a lot of laws. And it seems like Mr. Muhoozi is just above the law in this country.
Mr. Muhoozi is above the law because there is no law in Uganda which is except what his father stands for. And I'm sorry confining myself to him and his father on this very particular matter because it's very direct. It's actually very unfortunate to the extent that actually I can understand Comrade Awich, because Comrade Awich, you know, is senior to this guy in age and numbers in NRA, but he's now the commander, so he holds the rank more senior than Comrade Awich. So he's in a difficult position, and Comrade Awich also is an official of the organization for which this guy's father is a chairman. And so it's again difficult for Comrade Awich. And then finally, of course, the other one happens to be the man's son, you know, and then the man has done all these other things, and except Otafire, for once, who's tried a little bit, you know, nobody dares this guy. It is cheeks an insult for me. I'll say it's an insult to the people of Uganda, what Muhoozi says. And to consider what Muhoozi's father subjected this country to, atrocious criminal war in Luwero, in the name of challenging for rule of law. And Museveni comes and plays this kind of impunity and allows his family to insult Ugandans in this kind of... I found it completely unacceptable. I honestly find it actually insane that many Ugandans, average Ugandans, find that thing funny. I genuinely do. You know, to the extent in 2024, you know, Comrade may say it's a joke, and I can understand him. You couldn't say half of that in Kenya. Ugandans wake up. You could not say half of that in Kenya and get away with it.
You remember
so what nonsense is it? What is happening in Uganda? What curse has Mr. Museveni subjected in this country? So that the CDF of the Republic of Uganda, 2024, writes that on his Twitter handle as a joke. What is it? What's the implication? So why did they subject our people to a brutal war in Luwero? So what was it? So why did some of us waste time all this campaigning, want to return to pluralism and things like that? And we gave these guys the benefit of the doubt. So basically, there's impunity. There's no rule of law. I've got experience of it. There's impunity. There is abuse of our systems. There's a rape and abuse of public resources. His father the other day went and basically merely insulted people of northern Uganda. I was talking about the money economy kind of stuff, you know. And then he comes and does that. It can't be a joke. Honestly, it cannot be a joke. Now, of course, there's the other thing which we talk about, including the thing about the Guptas. And I don't know whether most of your viewers understand the Guptas, meaning the other Asian guys who held South African state to come. But at least the former South African president went to jail. Jacob Zuma went to jail and lost the government. And that's a democratically elected government, you know, post Mandela's. What's happening here in Uganda, that even some of which is own senior people in any of the political organization or senior people in any of the military thing don't say that, no, this family, this group of people are taking a stretch on our people, taking a stretch on the future of our country.
The family, and I remember that the only people who have, the person who looks to be reacting to this issue are the disciples of our one Odrek Ruabogo.
His brother-in-law.
Yes.
So basically, our country is basically being taken for...
and my question is, where are the civilians? Where are Ugandans in this particular...
Well, I have... some spirit came inside me, and I reacted as I did, and I couldn't hold it back.
How did you?
And I don't pretend about it, actually. Because I'm asking Ugandans, what is wrong with you guys? Ugandans, what's wrong with you? who has cast you Ugandans. 39 years, and the family is cruising like that in a particular way. We talk Pineti, and we talk Pineti, and we talk Luboa.
Yes.
You know?
And Mr. Museveni comes out and says he was the Pineti.
And he said he was the Pineti, and do everything that you want. Mr. Museveni really told you that he's working for his son, for his children, and his grandchildren. You know? He told the Kenya network. And you take it as a joke?
Yeah.
But most importantly, the other day, Museveni gave 500 billion Uganda shillings, 500 billion to a dubious European foreign construction company. I'll keep going back to that.
Morocco.
500 billion is a huge amount of money. And he gave another one talking about these dubious friends, because I don't know who owns and controls that Tiak Sugar. Ugandans also need to investigate that. It's not some average Ugandan. It's not some average Acholi who is being enabled that, okay, you guys, you came from concentration camps, you can now also become multi-billionaires and level up with us. Part of what the nonsense is trying to suggest. You know?
Huh?
So who is Amina?
The capital owner.
So Amina who? Who's Amina's father? Which school did she go to in Uganda? Where was she born in Uganda?
Please conclude that
You know,
issue.
so no, these are very important things. Then Amina gets 300 billion Uganda shillings. And these are supposed to be private firms that are supposed to inject money into our economies. What is it? Ugandans, where are we?
There's also another consortium of cattle keepers that were to be given 37 billion.
I can go on and on. I'm confining it because I don't really want to. Because actually, Ugandans need to wake up.
Okay.
No, Ugandans need to wake up, and I think I have said enough. It is possible for this country for us to turn around. Ugandans need to wake up, mobilize, and organize. And maybe for this more than anything else, Ugandans need to wake up. And for those Ugandans who are holding political parties hostage, it's the time for them to wake up, to allow Ugandans to join genuine political parties, be politically organized. There's a political leadership, and Mr. Museveni and his interests are directly challenged in the interests of Uganda, the way our founding and independence parents try to do so. Because we need to do it for our children, we need to do it for our grandchildren. And if I may say so, Comrade Rich and I are still young enough to be saying that we also want to be in public life for the next 20 years before eventually we retire.
Let me ask Comrade Awich as we get done. In fact, it's not Comrade, it's Awich. My question to you is, what do you think about the country? How it's going? Are you happy that your grandchildren are going to be raised in such a system that we are going to, and especially when it looks at the political aspect, the transition? What do you inherently really think about this thing as Comrade Awich?
Now, first of all, I need to emphasize this, that you can edit a document, either remove a comma, a full stop, or something, and it will have a different impact on people's consciousness. You can imagine the danger of editing this thing by removing Peter Mwesige from it. Nobody knows, even people think General Muhoozi was in his house and he woke up and posted this. That deliberate editing, you can see where it has taken the country. So I really think that we should be honest, because that editing can take the country really down, because it has really distorted everything. It's like Muhoozi woke up from nowhere and said this. Nobody now even knows it was a fair communication or a jokes between. It could have been now over, say, a girlfriend or a beer, a wine. Should it have been published? But even if it was to be published, why not both of them? You can now see the editing and where it has caused that. Now, if this was the intention of the editor, then he has achieved it. Because the whole intention was to put it in bad faith, bad light, and cause disharmony.
You call it
and
bad,
it has succeeded.
But he has said it.
He has,
At least it's on
yes,
record
the
that
editing has caused what the editorial person wanted to achieve.
Okay.
Okay, but that is how bad it is, and that's why we call for professionalism even among journalists. Because if you don't do something professionally, it leads us real into the dustbin. So you can see what the achievement of editing has achieved.
So if you don't, if you don't mind, sorry, it's not an interruption, because it's important what you're saying, Comrade Awich, because I take this very seriously. Then you guys should be asking Muhoozi to clarify a statement on Twitter.
For me, clarification was just to put both posts, what he reported to say, because somebody will read that this is a friendly conversation between two.
But even if
yes,
he did.
And that's why I'm saying
that
deleting
what he
that.
says, right?
Yes, it shows that he was joking with you.
Give us your party shots, sir.
No. You had asked me about my children. You see, I feel very happy and confident. Karanga, maybe you are young. If you knew that this country came from where the Congress were in power, where a roadblock would be on this road, and they would tell you, identity card on kwa mkono moja, pesa kwa mkono moja. Open daylight, that the army is at a roadblock, but please hold money on one side, identity card on one side. And it was the order of the day. State-sponsored killing was at its climax, where you would, even buying a sugar was not in the shops.
Yes, you conclude.
Now, if I see that where we are, that we don't have state-sponsored terror, that we don't have a roadblock, where it is an army roadblock, a government army, and you are told to hold identity card on one side and money on one side, and you find a long line on the road, I think we have moved, and we are moving. Remember, I had hinted that we shall continue to have minor contradictions, and they are not major. So I'm very happy with my children.
Okay, no problem. Sir, give us your parting shots as we end this discussion.
Comrade Awich is not being fully honest with himself. But if he's content with his children, I'm not with mine. But what Comrade Awich is also saying is extremely misleading, because another part of the NRA propaganda, the idea that the last UPC government, the mess that Comrade Awich talked about is a mess that Comrade Awich came in 1986 and found with themselves. 1985 July, when Museveni's friend, Awich's friends DP, Awich's friends the Okellos, and then Awich's friends the Kairas and others who came and captured Kampala after me. Oh, they caused a mess. Kampala was a mess. I was here. I was in town. From July 1985 until January 1986, I saw a mess here. And that mess continued after January 1986. 18 months after NRA coming to Kampala was when I exited to exile. 18 months. So 18 months would have taken us to 1983, halfway the UPC2 government. But 18 months after NRA, I beat 7 roadblocks officially from Kampala, all Kampala here, to Entebbe. When those roadblocks under NRA, when those roadblocks,
identity card on one side,
and yes.
Really?
That is true. And then number three, the people of northern Uganda who lived for 20 years under NRA, have accounts worse than the identity card question being suggested. The people who got roasted and the families who got roasted in rail wagons in Soroti, in Teso, have a lot more to say than that. For me, my father, and I really don't want to say today, my father was subjected by an NRA man in 1989, told to skin a chicken using his mouth. Okay, 1980. That is this NRA thing, and I've talked about this thing before. So no, these things have happened. Now, even if these things happened at the time, there is absolutely no justification, even if they happened, in a UPC or any other government at the time, that 40 years should be subjecting ourselves to this, and not by a regime that allegedly went to the bush because they wanted to bring a law and order. So that we rule by one family, and the son of the man is an army commander and is breaching every average aspect of the constitution and is subjecting to Ugandans to an insult that the young man did.
It's exactly 9 p.m. Thank you so much for watching. This is the Hotline Show. This gentleman is called Honorable Pollar Awich from NRM, and this gentleman is called Honorable Joseph Ochieno from Uganda People's Congress. Thank you so much for watching, and of course, special shout outs to the people who cut out these small clips and share them on TikTok, Twitter, and those particular platforms. Thank you so much. Continue doing that. You can advertise with us. Just send us a message through our social media platforms at Digitalk TV, at The Alternative Uganda. Good evening. I'll see you tomorrow at exactly 8 a.m. We're going to be having 2 activists the nude activists, that's how these days you're calling them on social media. They're going to be here with us, and we're going to be having a conversation with them from 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. tomorrow morning. My name is Edgar Matthew Karhanga. God bless you, and God bless Uganda.
The Alternative Dig Talk. Real issues, real talk.